Welcome to Journey to Essence. My name is Bruna Gonçalves, and today we are here with a special guest, Asa Sutton.
Hello.
Asa, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I wanna notice the fact that when you started your podcast, like a news anchor, it's like, hello, Channel 5 News. This is Bruno Gonzalez. I'm here tonight to tell you about a very important event. Like, yeah, you got the newscaster hands.
Yeah, it sounds more professional.
You need a map. You need a map behind you is what you need.
Exactly. Asa, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do as a teacher and a writer?
You know, it's funny. I came into this knowing you were going to ask me that question. Tell me about yourself. I had days to prepare an answer. I've had time, and I never know how to answer that. So you asked two questions. So you said, who am I as a teacher? And you said, who am I as a writer? Mm-hmm. I would say as a teacher, I'm someone, so I teach English. And specifically, I teach ESL, right? So I teach English to people who are learning to speak English, learning to hear English, just learning to use the language. And I'm someone who cares a lot about confidence as a teacher. I've taught things besides English, and even in those situations, I've felt like the best thing I can do, or like the best gift I can give to someone, is confidence. Not arrogance, not overconfidence, but the thought is like, hey, this is possible. I can do this, right? And it's sort of funny because that's who I am as a teacher. As a writer, it's almost the opposite. I think what I am as a writer is I'm somebody who's very interested in doubt, right? And creating doubt in people about what they believe or what they're doing or who they think they are. I'm very interested in the differences between who we think we are and who we actually are. Or everyone has multiple selves, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a singular person, but I'm interested in the tension between the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
like here's the story of my life, and our actual lives. So that's the best answer I have for you. In one part of my life, I create confidence. I want people to talk more, go out more, do more, feel like they're able to do more. And on the other part of my life, I kind of crush people down, or I'm interested in like people re-examining. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
And I really like that part that you said about we have like different sides.
Oh, absolutely.
So like people that are heroes, sometimes they think they need to be like only one person. Oh,
Sure.
I need to be my true self at school or at whatever place they're going to. And that's not true. Like you are a person as a teacher and you are a person as a writer. People are a person like as husband, wife, and whatever they are, like with fathers, like they need to be someone else.
Yeah.
They cannot be friends. So I really like that part.
Well, I like the way you said that just there. Like, if you're a father, you can't be a friend. I think that's very subtle. That's an important thing. It's actually not something I think about a lot, the way you just said that, which is that we have multiple selves, and it's not just that we have to switch between them. Mm-hmm. We have to bring the right self to the right moment, I forget, we were talking the other day and I used the phrase code switching. And I think that's really important. So I mentioned I used to teach things besides just ESL. I used to work in after school programs for children, actually middle schoolers, and, sometimes elementary. So I worked a lot with kids, and the way you show up with kids as a teacher is not the same as the way you show up with adults, right? If you try to show up, because, the way I teach adults is a little more casual. Mm-hmm. It's a little more relaxed, and it's certainly not fatherly, but I think I'm pretty friendly. One of the things people say, oh, he's such a friendly teacher. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, you can go to the bathroom. You're an adult. I trust you to, do what you need to do. You need to go and sit in the hallway for a minute, take a phone call, like all these things, right? And that's like the code that I put on when I work with grownups. But if you take that same attitude with kids, you're going to have a problem because they work a little differently. So you have to switch codes. You have to be more not authoritarian, certainly, but authoritative.
Yeah.
More of a, I don't have kids, but you have to be more of a parent in a lot of ways. And vice versa. If I was to show up, to an English class full of adults and try to be everyone's dad, try to be authoritative, I think that would be very difficult,
Yes.
actually, for me and for them.
I think I like what you said about like the kids. You need to be authoritative because I have seen like this when kids that I have like seeing my friends, dealing with, and they need limits.
They do.
Inside of the class, you're not only a teacher, but you are like this kind of parent, like teaching them, like, okay, now it's time for the other thing.
Yeah.
You're not only teach English, or any other subject you are like teaching. You are teaching the values and like how to behave like together with people. I feel like this is so nice. And doing this with adults, it's different because then we feel like you are not my father. Who are you?
Yeah.
To like say something like for me or I don't know. I feel like I like the different approaches that you have, and I feel like this is very smart.
Well, one of the things you just said that I liked, I want to jump in. You said kids need limits. Actually, they don't only need them, they want them.
Yes.
They pretend that they don't. Kids will pretend that they want to be free, and they want a little freedom, but really what they want is to understand the world. Like sometimes, and I'm sure you've seen this, like kids will push you, not because they want to like do whatever they want. They want you to stop them. They want to figure out what are the rules of the space. What can I do? What can I not do? They want you to give them limits and guidance and boundaries. It's very interesting. Actually.
Yeah, they are here for what? Like 5 years. They don't know anything about like the world and how like to deal with it, especially temper. Like, so they like ask, like almost crying, please, I need limits. It's so funny that you brought this up. I have another question for you, Asa.
Go ahead.
What brought you to be a teacher?
Oh, wow. It's funny. I fought the urge to be a teacher for a long time. I fought it. So I sort of started my professional life as a writer. That was the thing that I wanted to do. It was kind of almost the way that I like define. I still do, actually. I call myself a writer first. I do. And it's still much more like the core of who I am. If I ever have a bad day teaching, I kind of file it away and I say to myself, I still have my book. But if I have a bad day writing, nothing fixes that. That's a wound to the heart. But, what happened to me is after I graduated college, getting a job as a writer is kind of complicated. You don't just like go up and be like, hello, I would like to be a writer. It's not a thing you do. And a lot of people who write books, who write stories, they end up just working odd jobs, work as a waiter, work in an ice cream shop, work in retail. People do things. And one of the jobs that I ended up taking on is I was a tutor. I was a tutor, so individual, like one-on-one tutoring for, high school, various subjects, chemistry, physics, mathematics especially, writing, various, and I mean like high school writing, like essays, right? And I was doing this for a little while and everyone was saying, hey, like, you're good at this. You should do this. You should do this. This is like a thing that you're really good at. And I was like, no, I very much, because it wasn't how I identified myself. It wasn't, the way I'd say it, it wasn't part of the story that I was telling about myself. The story that I tell about myself is like, oh, I'm Asa, I'm a writer. Teaching wasn't part of that story. But, as stubborn as I am, eventually I was like, okay, fine. So I kept doing it. And every other kind of job that I had, working in retail, so working in like, a department store or working at a bookstore, working in all these other situations, I always found myself kind of restless or, having a lot of conflict between myself and the work. And when I was teaching, I always found that I was able to stay at those jobs longer and like much more comfortably because it was scratching like an itch in the heart. So yeah, that's sort of how I ended up like calling myself a teacher. Eventually, I just kind of gave up fighting. I was fine, like I'm a teacher, fine, right? But I'll also, one more thing I'll add is I didn't really love it until I started working with adults. It's like I was saying earlier, like I don't dislike kids. I don't. But there's something about working with adults. Because I don't like to be an authority figure. That's not really like a deep part of who I am. That's not one of my selves that I like a lot. And working with adults means that I get to focus a little more on like what we're doing. I don't have to keep everyone in their seats. And that for me actually made it like very rewarding. I don't know if that makes much sense, but
That makes a lot of sense. And I found very powerful the part that you said you didn't look to be a teacher. The teacher was looking for you. Wow, that's so amazing.
great. Yeah, not everyone was born great. Some of us had greatness thrust upon us. I've heard that one.
Exactly. Like in Christianity, we say like God gives us gifts.
Yeah.
And your gift, one is writing, the other one teaching.
I kept, if you want to go from a parable perspective, I kept trying to bury my talents.
Yeah.
I kept trying to bury my talents, and I thought maybe a tree will grow, but nothing.
Exactly. And I really like that because, you are trying to say no and they keep asking you for. This is so like inspiring for people that are curious. Sometimes they have something. They are trying to like, no, I'm not that good at it. But then everyone is saying, you should like work more on this. You are great. And sometimes they don't have this confidence. Like you said, you didn't love that. You only love it after you start working with that. So for all of you that are hearing us, sometimes just give it a shot. You never know if you're going to end up loving the thing that everyone's telling you you're good, And sometimes you can be surprised with the history that you're going to end up like writing.
It's interesting you bring up sort of God and faith, because that's also like a huge part. It's hard to talk about in a way that makes sense. This is a thing I struggle to express. I'm going to do my best. Okay. I'm going to try, but a little patience goes a long way with me. I'm someone. So I do believe in God, and I'm actually, I would say, a pretty faithful person. But one of the parts of my story that's maybe a little surprising, or it surprises some people, is that I wasn't raised that way. I was not raised that way. I was raised in a very atheistic household. I was about to ask if you know that. I'm English teaching right now. Do we know the word atheist? Let's write it on the board. Write it on the board. So my parents are both non-believers, and that's fine. But so I was raised in that way. Now, I know the stories. I was raised with books of stories from the Old Testament, from the New Testament, from India, from around the world, all sorts of religious stories. And I read them, but I read them as stories. I didn't read them as histories or as, ways of teaching or understanding. It's just like, oh, here's a story. There's the dude in the desert here. It's like storytelling exercises. I never went to church. None of the structure of a religious life was ever for me. My entire life, even now, I don't really like go to churches. I don't do things like that. What I believe about faith, or how I've arrived at faith, and I wonder, I would love to hear from you too about this experience, if you've had a similar experience, is I've arrived at faith as opposed to being put there by experiences that are impossible to ignore.
Wow.
So what I mean by that is, because again, like I'm stubborn. For a long time, faith was also not part of the story that I was telling myself. I was telling myself, I don't believe in God. Now, that's not true, but I was telling myself that story. This is Asa Sutton doesn't believe in God. That's how the story goes. And I'm telling the story, I'm telling the story, I'm telling the story. But over and over, things happen in my life, and the way they happen, I'm just like, that little like lean back, wait a second. And those experiences, like the way I describe it is, that doesn't make sense. What just happened doesn't make sense in a world without a God. It doesn't, I can't explain it. And they're not huge, like here comes a comet. They're little things, but they add up and they add up and they add up. And there comes a point where it's like either, like the only way to convince myself that something isn't happening here, the only way to get out of this religious experience is to be insane, right? I would need to deny my eyes and ears. I would need to deny like my own mind. I need to start really lying to myself. Be like, oh, that didn't happen. Or it's just a coincidence. Those sorts of things, you'd have to start. Do you know the phrase gaslighting? Do you know that? Yeah, I would have to start gaslighting myself pretty seriously to escape those conclusions. It would really, I want to hear from you too in a moment. I would say like it would damage my psychology. Like I would become mentally ill if I had to like deny. It hurts to lie to yourself, if that makes sense. But I'm curious how you experience that.
I can relate with everything that you said. Like, I was not an atheist, but I grew up like in a Christian family.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, they forced me.
Sure.
They forced me to go to church.
They beat you with the cross.
Yeah, almost like that. And then I was like, 5 years old, 6 years old.
Sure.
I went to church and I slept the whole service because I didn't want to go, and I thought they were just obligating me and being authoritarian with me.
Yeah.
And then what happened is I grew up and then my parents, they separate.
Oh.
When they divorced, I started feeling like I don't want more God. Like, look what happened with my life. I started being like a victim. And then I have this period from like, I think 9 to 13, 8 to 13, that I was very angry with my parents, with everybody else. I was like, I just don't want to live because like, I was formed that God is good, God is like love and everything, and then everything's happened with me, so God doesn't exist. And yes, and then for me, I was like, I don't want this, like I don't want to have anything to do with that. And later on, but a seed was planted in my heart because I grew up with that. So I knew God exists, but I didn't want to believe that God
So you
exists.
also like you resisted or you tried to,
Exactly. And then like what is weird, because all the time I was talking with God, I didn't want to believe, but all the time I was like, if you are really real. So I was talking with him. And one day I was like, you know what, I'm done. And then I had a prayer. I think I was about 12. And then I had a prayer and I was like, God, if you really exist, you need to do something. Otherwise, I don't want to live anymore. Like, that was my prayer. Wow. And I was like, seriously, I was like, all the time I was praying that I just don't want to live anymore.
But just poof.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously.
I don't want to die. I want to be dead. It's different.
Yeah, exactly. I like all the time I was like going to bed before I was like, God, if you like bring me, yeah, exactly.
Get on the elevator. Let's go.
Exactly. And then the other day I wake up like, oh, I'm still alive.
Right.
Like that, because when I like my prayer was, please, I don't want to live anymore and everything. And I was about 13 when God answered my prayer.
Right.
And I went to church because my father invited me to go to a church. The first time that I went to that church, God talked to me and was through the worship.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, like something happened inside of myself I could not explain. I just clearly like heard, was God talking with me?
Right.
And then I want to like accept like Jesus like at that same time, because like after service, usually in Brazil, they have this question, would you like to accept Jesus as your savior? And I would like to, but I was so young, I did not know that I could do it because of my age. Yeah. And then I asked my father, and then he said, I think there's not a problem. The other day that had service, I went there and accepted, and every day was like miracle after miracle, like small ones, like you said. And then the big ones too. Yeah, and then the big ones too. Like, I have a lot of history about that. But Asa,
Yeah.
when you have like this connection with like faith, knowing that, okay, I didn't believe, I am like fighting against this. Did you use this faith like to inspire you, like writing?
Oh, I just touched the mic by it. Slap it. Here's the problem. I can see my reflection and I'm like looking at myself in the eye. So, man, you asked the perfect question because you made me want to talk about that already. Other way around. My faith doesn't guide my writing. My writing, or didn't. I'm actually past tense. It's changed. But like the period of time that I'm talking about, my faith didn't guide my writing. My writing guided my faith. Other way around. And what I mean by that is this. I mean two things by that. The first thing I mean by that is it was through writing that I began to understand not God, but my idea of God. There's a difference, right? I began to understand my idea of God and what it is that I believe. So my relationship with God, I remember you said something a minute ago, which is like God is love and God is good. And, you know, we can say those things, but the world is full of chaos and the world is full of pain. These are facts that we can't quite escape from. And as I write about these things, because that's most of what I write about is misery. I write a great deal about human misery. I think of God less as a parent, like a father or a caregiver, and a lot more as a storyteller.
Oh.
I think of God is a writer.
Yes.
Much better writer than me, but God is a writer. And a lot of the things that happen, not just to me, but to everyone, bad things that happen are not so much like, here's your reward for being good, here's your punishment for being bad. It's like, here's part of the story. Here's part of the story. You know, when I think about dying and, you know, like what it is that heaven looks like to me, you know, what is the happiness at the end of life? Is it, you know, what is it they say? Like milk and honey and fruits. No. For me, like, I want to see the story, all of it. And I think that the reward for making it through a human life is you get a real good book at the end. You get to see all of it and not like the story of my life. I mean,
the whole picture.
Yeah, the whole picture. And I think that moment when you see all of it, like people talk about the plan. What is God's plan? Like, I don't know what it is. Man, I want to know. Oh, it makes me crazy. I want to know. And I think that I can't imagine a better reward than that. It's got to be that. So that's the first part of it. But the other thing about writing in faith, the other thing about it, like I said, I write a lot about misery. And I write about God, but I write sort of about like the storytelling God, not so much the loving God, but the storytelling God. I mean, we're not at school. I can say stuff. Yeah. So I've been really, really active with the situation in Palestine. That's a huge part of my life. I have a lot of friends in the area. Even before the most recent eruptions of conflict, I've been writing about Palestine. It's been a huge part of my life. And one of the things I'm writing about is, and I don't, I write stories. I don't write essays. I write stories. But one of the things I'm interested in is like, how do we look at what's happening like from the perspective of faith and this is hard for me to talk about. It's easier for me to write about. So patience, again, goes a long way with me. Like one of the things I think about a lot, and maybe this will answer the question of how faith informs writing. One of the things I think about a lot is the first miracle. So the first miracle, and this is true for actually almost every religion. It's true for Judaism, Islam, Christianity, and religions from around the world. It's true for a lot of like shamanistic religions. It's true for a lot of indigenous Chinese religions, Aboriginal, like Native American religions. Everyone has this idea. The first miracle was when the Creator, call him God, call him whatever you want, made the shape of a human being. It's always out of clay or mud, one of the two, clay or mud, and he turned mud into a soul. Right? The first miracle, so like humans are made of just atoms and stuff, but here we're doing this thing. That's a miracle, right? The miracle is turning mud into people. First miracle.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't count creation of I don't count that. That's its own thing. The first miracle inside the universe, was the animation. That's the word, animation or inspiration. The putting of the spirit into dead mud, right? We're just mud, and then we're more than mud. And in a lot of the Abrahamic religions, especially, so Christianity, Judaism, Islam, that's something that the devil is jealous of. He's like, now wait a minute. These people are made of mud. What makes them so special, right? There's a jealousy, there's an anger about that. It's part of the story, right? And I think what's happening, what I see in Gaza, and what I've seen in other genocides, other in the Sudan and a lot of places, is we're undoing the miracle. We're taking people and we're turning them back into mud. And not just like, oh, we're killing people. Like, people die all the time. My grandfather died of cancer. He didn't turn back into mud. He just died. It's different. Yeah. But what we're doing, it's like dehumanizing. So I think that this is like the biggest trick of evil, not to kill someone, but to say, you're not human anymore, and you never were. Not just you aren't human, you were never human. You were always mud. You were always just mud. And the way that we're treating people in Palestine, and again, not just Palestine, in Sudan, in Yemen, in Lebanon, 5 people were killed, in Iran, in Iraq, in Afghanistan. Oh my God, right? In all of these places, we're undoing the first miracle. We're saying, no, humans aren't special. We're just mud. We're just bits and string. We're just meat. All we are is organs and viscera. There's nothing magical about us. Watch, here's 2,000 pounds of a pressure bomb to pop you like a balloon. Here's shrapnel to take your head clean off. Here's starvation. Here's disease. Here's everything. You're not human. You never were.
Whoa.
That's what I write about, right? I've told you before that, when I come to class, you get happy, smiley. I would do if I was a little bit, my back didn't hurt so much, I'd be doing cartwheels for you. I warned you, you get me alone. Ooh, very different man, very different man. But so for me, like, to finish, you asked about, like, how does faith inform writing? So right now I'm writing a book and I am confronting that reverse miracle. I am obsessed with that. This idea that we are going and like playing Genesis backwards, right?
Wow. This is so sad.
It's horrible.
And at the same time, interesting, because I have not thought that way until now. And then I was like,
that's why I'm writing a book about it, right?
Yeah. And even the Bible, like, the last book about the Bible, like Revelation, we see exactly like that. And I have never like thought this way. Like the destruction, like, everyone is gonna die at the end. But like, again, wow.
Well, there's dying. There's dying, and then there's erasing, right? It's different. I mean, I'll share you another small story, right? So I study folklore and religion. I study around the world. I'm fascinated with this stuff. Like, I've almost everything I write is about something that someone somewhere believes, and sometimes I encounter a belief and I'm like, ooh, that like set off dominoes, right? So there are 2 things that almost every culture that cultures all around the world, not every culture, there's a lot of these things, but there are these 2 ideas that you can find almost everywhere in the world. The first thing that's everywhere, humans were made from mud. Sometimes it's by God, sometimes it's by a God, sometimes it's by a spirit, sometimes it's by, but humans are made from mud, number 1. This is what we call a cultural cognate. It is everywhere. The second thing, flood. Every culture on earth, or almost every culture on earth, has a flood myth. Now, we, in the West, we have Noah's Ark, and that's one. But even in this country, in this land, before the Westerners were here, before European settlement, the Native Americans had a flood myth, and
Oh,
it
really?
was Coyote. It was Coyote who sometimes Coyote saved everyone, sometimes Coyote snuck his way onto the boat. Sometimes there's a lot of different versions of it. The Greeks had Deucalion, which
Wow.
is also a flood myth.
Mhm.
There's Utnapishtim in Indian mythology. Utnapishtim, the first human who built a boat to survive the flood. Everywhere. I could go on for a long. Sorry, not no no. In Indian mythology, it's Manush. It's Manush.
Manish.
In Babylonian mythology, it's Utnapishtim. I got mixed. It happens. It happens. There's a lot. The point is actually there's a lot of these things. Chinese mythology is a flood myth. Flood myth. There's a flood myth in China. A flood myth. There's Aboriginal everywhere. I mean everywhere. Everyone has this story. South America, Central America. I'm willing to bet if you go back to Brazil and you find a bunch of people like, hey, tell me like a Brazilian from indigenous Brazilians, someone's going to say, hey, there's that flood one, right? And we've known about this for a long time. Researchers are like, hey, these are two things that like, wow, that's so cool. These must be very old stories.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm obsessed with, and I want to see if this is a light bulb for you. What happens if you put them together? These two ideas, put them together. So like, if a human being is killed by a flood, like if I'm killed by a flood
Mm-hmm.
right now, like my body is left behind, I'm like floating on the
Yeah.
water, like it's a disaster. It's death, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you leave behind a body. You leave behind ruins.
Mm-hmm.
You leave behind, if you're lucky, texts or artifacts, right? If you're a human being, if you're made of flesh and bone, if you have wood, like a flood it's death. But again, it's death that leaves a funeral, shall we say.
Wow.
If you're made of mud and the flood comes, you're like a sandcastle. Not only are you gone, you were never there. A flood doesn't kill something made of mud, it erases it.
Wow.
So I think that like these two stories together, we are made of mud and the flood is coming. We don't fear death, we fear negation. We fear being removed so completely that we were never here at all. And that's like a deeper fear than death, being erased, right?
Isa, I have a question related to
Please.
that because, like, you brought something very interesting about the flood and about
Thank
us
goodness
being.
I brought something interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, everything that you're saying
Good.
is very interesting, but this part, it like touched myself because, like, I had another view about this
Right,
situation.
sure. I'd love to hear it.
And I would like to just ask you about a lot of people, Christians, like
Sure, sure.
especially, they said, oh, because we already have been like erased by flood, now we are going to be erased by fire. And what is your
Ooh.
point? Like, do you have any like opinions about that?
Erased by fire.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thought. Well, the thing is, it's sort of the same. It's a little different, but it's sort of the same, right? Fire leaves you as ashes, right? Again, fire is a death that erases what was left, right? Like if a person gets like shot, like they die, sure, but like there they are. It leaves behind, right? You can't. Here's a way to look at it. You can't kill a library with bullets, but you can kill it with a match, right? Man. The truth is I don't know. I don't know, like, here's what it makes me think of. I've got it. So I was talking a little bit before about that idea of like the story at the end, looking back and seeing all of it. And part of what for me is interesting about that, or part of what like really attracts my heart to that, is this idea that there are parts of human history and there are things that have happened and people who have lived that I have never known and never had the chance to know, because so much has been lost, right? There's so many civilizations that we know maybe their name but like so much of it is gone,
Yeah.
right? And I think sometimes as people of faith, we I think everyone always thinks they're in the end times.
Mm-hmm.
This is the thing. Like in the year 500, everyone's like, this is Revelations is happening. Year 1000, Revelation. I think we have this tendency as humans because we want to feel important. We want to feel like we're living at an important time in history, right? You know, the apocalypse might be tomorrow. It might be. You know, that might be the end, the beginning of the end. Might be tomorrow. 100% possible. It could also be in 10,000 years. It could also be in 10,000 years. I think sometimes people bank on the apocalypse, right? Everyone's like, I'm part of the last generation.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, maybe we'll be destroyed by fire. Maybe we're being destroyed by fire. Maybe the library is burning as we speak. It's not the first time.
Yeah, like I brought this up because like a lot of like pastors, a lot of like people that study like Hebrew, like
Sure.
Aramaic and other like languages, they go to like the piece of papers that they found,
Yeah.
you know, and based on their studies, they found, okay, we have like some evidence that will not be by flood anymore, but there
Oh, I
is
see
a
what you-
high
yeah.
chance that, because like Jesus said, and then we like we believe in that phrase that he said, he will come, you know, and the revelation that John wrote about. And then because of that, we know, okay, the world will end, but we don't know how. We know certain parts. And then like there is like this belief, like certain parts will be like, you know, war. And then like certain parts will be like tsunamis and things like that. But people also think that a huge part will be fire.
Well, I mean, the planet's getting hotter. I don't know if it,
Yeah.
well, you want to hear? I'm gonna give you a controversial take. You ready for this?
Yes.
You're about to get canceled.
Let's see it.
I think. Oh boy, this is big. I think the Antichrist is already on Earth.
Yeah,
I think the Antichrist has
that's
been on Earth for a while.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a person.
What do you think it is?
I think the Antichrist is the version of Jesus that people use to justify whatever they want.
Oh, that's good.
I think the Antichrist is the painting of Jesus holding a machine gun.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Because what is it? That's a false image of the Christ,
Mm-hmm.
leading everyone down the wrong road. And those same people are the same ones who are obsessed with the Antichrist and figure out who it is. And they say, oh, 666 on everything. They're branding themselves. They're doing it right there. The false Christ is literally like the white, racist, violent Jesus that Americans have invented. It's not like a person at a podium. We are going to church and worshiping the Antichrist every day.
Wow.
No, you're not. But like, there's
a lot of people.
Yeah, you know
that.
what? You know the Jesus in quotes who I'm talking about.
Yeah, yes.
The one who's like, oh, Jesus is coming back and he'll hate you, right? No, he won't. Who are you like? Jesus didn't hate anybody. What are you talking about? But they've invented this. I mean, and I'll put it, false God. There is a true Christ, and there's a false Christ who's been invented by America. Who's like, Jesus is coming in a tank to blow up Yemen. Like, what?
Yeah.
Jesus doesn't have his driver's license, first of all. I don't think he's qualified to operate that machinery. And, you know, I wouldn't. But you see what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Like, the Antichrist is a human invention in the sense of like, we're gonna make him. We're gonna make him, dude. And I think we already have in part.
Yeah, and even in the Bible, they also say about that. Like Jesus said, if you hear me, oh, the Christ is here, don't believe them. Don't go there. Wow, thank you for brought this up.
Yeah,
I really appreciate that.
It's very much like a storyteller's perspective, right? Because like if I was, and again, this is, I think a lot of, part of being an atheist, or part of growing up as an atheist is, and I'm actually curious about this because you didn't grow up as an atheist, or not in the same way that I did, certainly. How does an atheist learn to be humble?
Ooh,
Because if you grow up with faith, and if you grow up with real faith, I don't mean growing up with being like forced and like, you know, because sometimes that's not faith. If it's forced, it's not faith. Growing up like with a real appreciation of God teaches you humbleness in a very natural way. You know, it's very hard. If you truly believe in God, you can't think that you're better than other people. You can't.
Yeah.
Because next to infinity, every number is zero. Next to the number infinity, 10 and 1 are the same size. They're both 0. Next to God, like a piece of corn and a galaxy are the same size. Everything is 0. You have to be humble. You don't have a choice. If you don't believe in God, I think it's possible to be humble, but it's a very different path to get there. And for me, like learning to be humble is the thing I still struggle with, actually, because I don't have that natural sense of human scale, right? My ego, my arrogance is still a thing that I struggle with a lot. I wonder, like, does that reflect your experience, or is it very different for you?
I feel like everyone is struggle with being humble.
That's true.
I feel like God put in the heart of everyone like a conscience.
Sure.
So like we know like what we are doing correct or not, but then there is also the ego. And then one fight with the other. And then like I see it by myself when I was a kid that I didn't believe in God. Okay, my mom, she said, Bruna, don't do that. Guess what I did?
You did.
The opposite.
Yeah.
And another thing I noticed is all the time that I was doing something wrong, even though my moms didn't say anything to me, something inside of me was saying, Bruna, that was not correct.
Yeah.
And then what was that thing? I believe it was God, because he put this conscience on us for we to notice what is in accordance with him and his persona, who he is, and what is not. So I feel like we have this choice because he also gave us like free will. So we can decide if we are going to be humble or if we are not. I feel like when I was a kid, I noticed a lot of times that I knew I should be better, and acknowledge that, okay, I need to like put myself down, not like in a way like, oh, everyone's better than me, but know that I am not better than anyone else, and I had a hard time to that. And I feel like most of people, they have a hard time because of the ego. It's not that they don't know how to be humble. They do know how to. But they give more like experience, more hope, and more like power to the ego part, who they are or who they think they are. So, like you said,
stories
everyone is telling a story. Like they say, "Oh, I am this person, so I am put everything that I can to hold this image that I have."
Yeah.
So I feel like it's the same thing, but then they put this history about, no, I don't need that. I will not I will not feel sorry about what I did, so.
Well, it's interesting, we're talking about like, the conscience and the moral self. I think a lot about Genesis. So I'm somebody, and you've figured this out by now, I'm obsessed with words. I think words are really important. And not just in the sense of like, oh, you should say them right, but like which words go where. And in scripture, this is also true, right? Genesis is not like, and not just all of it. But I'm talking about Genesis right now. This is the one I like, and all the other, like, those words are chosen very specifically. If you believe those words are divinely inspired, like none of those words are wrong. None of those, if you changed anything, even a single word, the whole meaning would be different, right? And like the example I think about all the time, at the very start, when God said, let there be light, and then here's the part that I care about, and he saw that it was good. That word saw is so, there's something about that word. That word keeps me up at night. And the reason it keeps me up at night is because when I think of saw, I think of like discover, right? Like almost as if, and when you first think about it, you say almost as like, oh, God is asking a question, right? Oh, is light good or not? Let me look at it. Okay, it looks good. It's good, right? I've discovered that light is good. But that is impossible. That doesn't make sense. If God is infinite, eternal, and absolute, God can't learn anything. God is not able to learn anything because God already knows everything. So God can't see in the way that we see. When God sees that it's good, it's not a discovery of seeing, it's a declaration.
Ooh.
God, it's using saw in the sense of decided that it was good. God assigned goodness. God wasn't like, ooh, it's good. Ooh, look at that. This is not like what a nice surprise. God's not surprised. What are you talking about? He's like, oh, what a love, you got me for my birthday. God doesn't get birthday present and open it. Wow, no, come on, that's ridiculous, right? No, God decided that light was good. He assigned moral value. Mm-hmm. Here's what's important. That's a reminder. God can see that it's good in that way. We get the other word. Mm-hmm. We don't get to see that it's good in the way that God sees it's good. We see that it's good in the sense of discovery. Mm-hmm. The other word, the other version of saw, that does not belong to us. It does not belong to us. But if Genesis was written differently, if it said God decided that it was good, well, we get to decide things too. We get to decide things too. That to decide belongs to us, sure. And suddenly we lose that meaning. When it's saw, the word saw splits. And that's really interesting. Because when God made us in his image, it's not eyes. Like, God doesn't have eyes. This big God, like, what? Hands, feel? It doesn't look like this. It's referring to something else. It has a different meaning. I don't know. I think about that a lot. That keeps me up at night. It really keeps me up.
That makes sense. Yeah. Because, like, he saw it, but at the same time, he knows the future. He knows everything.
Yeah.
I like the way that you say that he didn't discover it,
How
but
could he?
like,
How could he?
in his way, he like saw, it's not that he decided, but he knew it was good.
I would go a step further. I would say the light wasn't good until God saw it.
Wow.
The light wasn't good until God saw it. That's what I think that means. But for us, everything exists already. Everything exists already. We don't get to create good and bad in the way that God did. We don't have that authority or even that ability, or actually the word I'd use, we don't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
We don't have that opportunity.
Like, this is something that is nice to think about, because God, he can see the light, but then when he created us, he said, you are in my image.
Yeah.
And then because we are his image, now we can create things too and decide if the things are good or not things. Yeah. Like, didn't exist planes before, didn't exist a lot of machines that we use today before. Yeah. But we build everything and we decide, it's good or not, because we have this weird copy of God. We're
trying to recreate. And so I write about this all the time. We're trying to recreate Genesis. Yeah. Every day we're trying to make something new in exactly the way that we were made. We're obsessed with this act of creation.
Yes.
Right? But again, like I said at the start of, not the start of this, but I said a little while ago, the irony is we're doing it backwards. We are undoing the miracles. Not just in Gaza. I mean, Gaza is an example of that. We've turned human beings back into mud. We've also turned human beings into numbers. We've turned them into numbers. We've turned them into dollar signs. We've turned them into data. We've turned them into symbols. I remember we were talking the other day about that refugee project, and there's that girl, and everyone was treating her like she was a symbol of strength and a symbol of resilience and a symbol of courage. And this girl, don't get me wrong, she was strong, she was resilient, and she was courageous. Of course she was. She would be dead if she wasn't. But we were treating her like she was a symbol and not a person. We put her on a pedestal and we completely depersoned her. We undid the miracle. And more and more we're doing that. You look at social media. I feel like every podcast in the world has the sentence, if you look at social media, and exactly. It's copyright, everyone's talking about it. But we're talking about it for a reason. We all feel like something is wrong. That voice inside of you that said, Bruna, maybe you don't do that. Maybe that was wrong. We all have that voice. Everyone feels it. We all have different ideas about, everyone has their own little italic lean about what's happening. But I think we all look at the internet, we look at social media, Facebook, Instagram, all these things, TikTok, and we say this is wrong, this is somehow this is against creation. And Because again, what we're doing, we're taking the miracle of inspiration, the miracle of the beginning of life in the spirit, and we're reversing it. We're undoing it, right?
Wow, this is very interesting. How do you process everything that is happening in the world, and if your own words put it in a writing so people can understand the same way that you view this whole situation, this whole picture, because you have a sense of certain parts, certain things that is happening, all around the world.
Man, I'll tell you, if I had a good answer to that question, I'd have finished my book already. But I'll give you a bad answer to that question. Honestly, trauma.
Trauma?
No, straight up. Well, again, we're not at school. I can speak openly. I have seen things that you can't, there's no comparison for it in modern life. I've seen children turned into mist. I've seen, I'll tell you, I saw a child whose head had been blown off, and it was blown off with such force that as his head was flying away, it pulled out half of his digestive tract, right? It was still, it pulled out his stomach through his neck, right? Right? And I've seen worse than that, and when you see something like that, you become sick. The human, whether you believe in God or not, we can talk about the human heart, but we can all agree the human mind, even if you're just a pure psychologist, the human mind is not equipped to process images like that on its own. The human heart, even less so, but the human mind, definitely not. And past a certain point, you have no choice but to process and I would use the word regurgitate, almost vomiting. I see things and I process them and I, kind of get the poison back out of my body. And for me, that's writing. I've told you already, the book I'm working on is one of the ugliest things I've ever written, but it's the only way I have. Besides, I try to solve the problem. I do activism. I donate money. I do a lot of those things. But even I think about this sometimes. Even if the war ended tomorrow and all my friends were safe and everyone stopped, even if everyone was okay tomorrow, and in the sense of not dying, I wouldn't be okay. I wouldn't be.
Yeah.
I would still have all that poison inside of me, right?
Yeah.
So I would be taking, and part of how I write about it too is I look at history. Because this is not, the social media, the fact that it's all on Instagram, that's new. But the fact that this is happening to people, this isn't new. New. We've turned humans into mud before. We've done it. Mm-hmm. And I look at those other times in history. What were people doing? What were people saying? And one of my, I'm not going to say heroes because I don't have heroes. That's not how I think. But one of the people I think about a lot is Miguel Cervantes.
Oh, Miguel Cervantes.
I think about him all the bloody time. Actually, want an example of coincidences you can't ignore. Part of the reason I believe in God. So Miguel Cervantes was for those who don't know, he wrote Don Quixote, one of the most famous works of literature, and definitely the most famous work of Spanish literature. So he lived in the 1500s and early 1600s in Spain. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about him, he had a nickname. Saavedra, which is from the Arabic shavedra, which is one-armed. He only had one working arm. His left arm, right? We don't know if it was amputated or if it was just limp. I think we do know now. We used to not know. A few years ago, they found his skeleton and it was he still, so it was just limp. It wasn't cut off. Sorry, I forgot about that detail. But what happened is that he lost the use of his left arm when he was shot. He was shot 3 times. 3 times in the shoulder and in the chest, and it damaged the nerves, and he lost the use of his arm. Okay, you ready for this? He was shot during the Battle of Lepanto, which was a battle between Europe and, I'm simplifying a little bit, between Europe and Turkey. It was a battle between Christianity or Catholicism and Islam. In 1571, on October 7th. Wow. Second detail. During the Holocaust, there was an uprising in Auschwitz, one of the death camps, actually, one of the death camps, in which the prisoners, and it's the only time in all the Holocaust that there was an armed uprising against the guard. The Jewish prisoners fought back, and they failed completely. They all died and nobody escaped. Like it was a disaster. But it was the only time they tried. They used like sharpened sticks. Like this is like desperate measures, right? And it was in the middle of course, like what are they going to do? Stand there and wait, right? Like, so that happened in 1944 on October 7th. So there's a trio of dates. There's 3 October 7ths that all intersect in time. I did not know those when I started writing my book. I was writing about Gaza before that. Wow. And I discovered these other 2 facts completely by accident as I was doing it. And every time when I discovered the fact about Cervantes, I was already writing about Don Quixote. I was already writing about it. And I just, he was injured and I'm like, and I'm like, come on, right? I was almost sarcastic, like, really? Like, are you going to make it so obvious? Like, yeah. Okay, right? And then later, and I discovered about the Auschwitz uprising. I learned about that during a completely unrelated trip to Poland. I was at a museum and I was like, really? At the same day? And I like, what do you do? Like, stop it, right? But again, to bring back to Cervantes, though, so he was alive at a time of intense political violence. He was alive during the Inquisition. And it was a time like in Spain when it was illegal. Like, so there was a lot of paranoia about Muslims. And there's sort of like secret Muslims everywhere. They're hiding under the floor. They're in the attic. They have all, where are they? What are they going to do to us? They're invaders. It's a lot of paranoia. If you listen to the way we talk about immigrants now in this country, 1-to-1, perfect correspondence. And Cervantes, he was pretty upset about this. He was watching a nightmare unfold in his country every day. He was watching people dragged out of their homes, families split up. When so in the early 1600s, around 1611, 1609, 1611, all of the Moriscos, all of the North African and Arab people were kicked out of Spain all at once. 50,000 people, marching, sent on boats away. Everyone was sent away except the children. The Spanish kept their kids. They stole the children of all these people, right? And Cervantes was like watching this happen. Exactly the same as what happens at our border in this country. We separate parents and children. Same thing. In Gaza, they kidnap children. They pull them off the streets from their families. They just do it, right? This is just part of how you crush a people. And Cervantes was watching this happen, and he was alive at a time where if he had written about it, if he had said this is wrong, they would have dragged him away. They would have taken him away. So what he did is he wrote about it in this very careful way. He had a character who was crazy, right? Don Quixote is crazy. He's a crazy person. And because he's crazy, he can say anything he wants. And everyone's like, he doesn't actually, like Cervantes doesn't believe that. It's just his crazy character. Or he would have these very subtle references, right? To like people who are missing. He would like sometimes Don Quixote would be in a place and there's a strange like gap where a person used to be, right? Or one of my favorite examples is there's a scene pretty early in the book. I'm nerding, right? I'm hitting you with all of it. For those at home, I'm so sorry. This is just my favorite thing. There's a scene pretty early in the book where Don Quixote and his friend Sancho, they're riding together, and they come across a group of prisoners, what we today call a chain gang. So it's a bunch of, everyone's wearing handcuffs and they're being marched. And there's 12 prisoners. And Don Quixote, because he's crazy, he's like, oh, these are prisoners of an evil, wicked, enchanter. I must free them. He's being like, his heroic, crazy self. But he goes and he asks the prisoners, like, why are you in prison? What did you do wrong? And when I was reading this, I noticed something. There's 12 prisoners. It's explicit. There's a dozen prisoners, 12. He only asks 6 of them. The other 6, he doesn't bother asking any questions because he already knows why they're there. He only asks the white ones. He knows what's happening to the ones who aren't white. And he frees all of them. But he doesn't, Cervantes does this over and over and over and over in his books, over and over. He hides these little like tricks where it's like, wait a second, you know? Or like another really easy example, right, is early in the book. It's when we first meet Alonso Quijano, who's like the guy who goes crazy. Cervantes really goes out of his way to point out that he's eating bacon and eggs. He says that. He's like, and is very specific. The reason for that, and you may know this, in Islam, bacon is haram. You cannot eat pork. In Spain, for about 100 years, you had to eat pork, and you had to do it in front of everyone. You had to do it in front of everyone. They had to watch you do it, so that they would know that you were not a Muslim. It was forced, right? And if you wouldn't eat the pork, they're like, he's one of them. And I know that you know about this kind of thing, because this same thing happened to Christians. The early Christian church, when I mean early, I mean like right after Jesus died, right? Like it was not safe to be Christian in Rome. It was not safe. You know, you wouldn't get burned. You get thrown to the lions. That's what they talked about. Yeah. And there were all these little tests that they made people pass, right? There's like, oh, like you're really not a Christian. You have to worship these idols. Do it right now. Like fall to your knees in front of Jupiter, right? Like do it. And if you don't do it, off you go. And it's, over and over and over. In Inquisition Spain, same thing. And Cervantes was pushing back. He was pushing as much as he could. And I mean, here's the truth is he failed. Of course he failed. He was just one man. But so in my own writing, to bring it back to what you asked, I sort of look at his example, because I can do something he can't. I can speak freely. You know, Cervantes can't speak free, or he couldn't. I mean, he still can't. I guess he come back. No, he couldn't speak freely, right? He'd be punished for it. I'm luckier than him. For now, I'm in a place where I can speak freely. And so I asked myself, like, what would he say if he could? How would he, That's kind of how that guides. Does that answer your question? Yeah, I just gave you so much. I'm so sorry.
It answered, and I have a last question for you.
Please, yeah.
It's your last chance, like, to do something in the earth, and you need to, like, write something, what would be the words, your last lesson to this world? What would you say?
My last lesson?
Yes.
So I'm someone who's, again, I've told you, I think a lot about words, and I care a lot about words. I don't think I'm someone who should leave a last lesson. I think that's the wrong word, because I don't think I'm wise enough to do that. I don't think I'm quite worthy of that, right? I think that my life can be a lesson. I think every life is a lesson. That's how stories work. Every life is a lesson. Good lives are lessons, bad lives are lessons, right? I don't see myself, like, I teach people how to speak English, but I'm not that other kind of teacher, right? I'm not a prophet. I'm not a saint. I'm not upset at the question. I'm just more like, I'm playing with it. But if there was a last thing I was going to write, I'm already doing it. And I'll tell you why. Because I have to be careful about my arrogance. I have to remember, like, the part of me that's humble. The story that I tell about myself is that I'm a writer. Mm-hmm. That's the story that I tell, that I'm going to, like, I don't imagine a version of my life where I don't finish this book, right? And, I'm like, sometimes on the days when I'm like really tired and exhausted, I'm like, okay, I'm going to finish the book, then I'm going to die. I'm done, right? I'm out, right? Like, once I'm done, then I'm allowed to die, right? Not today. I'm not going to die today. Give me like 5 months to finish this stupid thing, then, you can take me, right? But here's the thing, like, that's a story that I'm telling about myself. I'm not the storyteller of my life. I try to be, but I'm not the storyteller. It is entirely possible that I die today, and everything I thought that I was supposed to do, pointless. In fact, the story of my life, the lesson of my life that I meant to teach people, is that actually, Sometimes you never do any of the things that you think you're supposed to do. Maybe I'm going to walk out of this room and not the tree. I don't want anything bad to happen. I'll walk outside and a tree will fall on me. That's how I'll die suddenly. Tree will fall on me and everyone will be like, wow, like you can really, and my life will be a lesson because I thought that I was going to live longer, right? So I'm already doing it. I every day I write like I'm going to die in 5 minutes.
Wow.
Because one, I might, and two, that might be the point. That might be the point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's a very nice question and a nice way to answer this question. Because, like, that's true. Your life is a lesson,
Everyone's, right?
Yeah, it's a thank you so much.
Of course, it was great to be here
with us. Thank you so much for all the knowledge that you shared with
I rambled a lot, man.
That was so good. Thank you so much, Asa. Would you like to share with people how they can find you online?
Oh man, I'm actually gonna say I'll give you a link to put in the description of this maybe, but I'll say one last thing about myself. I actually am really bad at self-promoting and I don't like to do it. And the reason I don't like to do it is you know how like they say the best way to like find someone to love is like through your friends, like the people, or like through a strange accident, through a twist of fate, right? I think that for me, if I show up, I'm like, here's how you find me, here's how you pay, here's how you give me money, like, I feel as though there's a magic in stumbling upon me accidentally, right? I think if you've heard me speak and you're really interested in what I'm doing, you'll find me. And if you're not, what do you lose?
That's great. Thank you all for hearing us until now. If you would like to know more about Journey to Essence, please enter in the website brunaonmission.com. Thank you so much, Asa. Thank you so much, you all. See you next episode. Bye-bye.